Welcome to the show, All Things Writing. I am your host, Brian the Writer. Let me take you on a journey through my writing life and introduce you to some of the amazing talent that exists in the writing world. Whether you are looking for a little advice or just to catch an interesting interview, sit back, relax, and enjoy the show. All Things Writing starts now. Hello, fans and friends. Welcome to All Things Writing. I'm your host, Brian the Writer. So today I have a very special guest who will be joining me. His name is Dustin Grammer. Dustin comes to me from a fellow friend of the show, Diego the podcaster. You probably heard me on his show recently. If you haven't, you need to go over and check it out. Diego does some amazing podcasts. Very, very enjoyable time with him. I think we covered a lot of ground. Diego, of course, has a really interesting background as well, and he had written a book recently that I thought was pretty darn good about his personal paranormal experiences. But anyway, that's not what we've come to talk about today. We've come to talk to Dustin and his new book. I will find out when it's available. I believe it's available now, though. You can buy it. He's written a couple other books. Anyway, thank you for joining us today on All Things Writing. And well, here we go. Dustin, welcome to the show.
Oh, thanks for having me. It's good to be here.
Oh, it's, as I like to say, it's my pleasure. If I didn't have anybody come join me on the show, this would just be me talking to myself. And well, I already do that enough, so we don't need any more of that. It's just weird.
I've been really excited about this one. This is actually probably the first and only author centric podcast that I've been on so far. So I've been really looking forward to this.
Well, I am very honored. Thank you. That's wonderful. So why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Okay. Well, I live in Alabama, and I've been writing. I just released my third book, The Other Side of the Graveyard, which is, as a published author, has been kind of a new endeavor. But I've been sticking to Southern-based stories so far, and two horror anthologies and one sort of a thriller horror sci-fi thing. So that's just a very quick overview of where I'm at with as an author so far on the published side.
Do you think so you mentioned the southern-based horror, and it made me think a little bit about my one of my friends, John Hartness, who runs Falstaff Books, he writes the Bubba the Monster Hunter series. All takes place in the South. Actually, it's a great series. But is there a certain flair in the South that lends itself well to these kinds of stories?
I think so. I think Bubba the Monster Hunter sounds pretty interesting too. Well, really, I'm a big fan of classic ghost stories, Victorian age stuff, Scottish, Irish, UK based, German folklore. I was still am, a lot of sword and sorcery, fantasy books. But when it came to telling these stories or deciding to write something, which, there's a couple of those things I have in my notes to tackle later, but they kind of say stick to what you know. And it just comes natural as a Southerner to, I've grown up with people telling stories in my family, and there's some good storytellers around here,
Yeah.
by spoken word, so it just, the flair to it, it's kind of familiar to me. Sometimes when I'm writing, I like to focus on setting and atmosphere, and it just, I like to get in a headspace where I kind of get in a trance where I'm in the scene that I'm writing, and just being from the South and having that experience, it was just the easiest place to start, I guess.
I like to say the older I get, the more Southern I become. At this point in my life, when I do retire from my day job, my goal is to move to North Carolina. I even have a couple spots in mind already. But you spend enough time in the South, I don't know, it's sort of funny, you kind of fall in love with it. Just the people and the culture and the food. Oh my God, the food. Spoken like a Midwestern boy who was raised on white bread and mayonnaise. I can tell you, Southern cooking is out of this world. It'll kill me. Definitely. I'm not even saying it might kill me. It will kill me. Um, Fried okra,
Oh
chicken,
man,
barbecue by the ton. Yeah, it's gonna do you in, but that's okay. That's what a way to go, right? But I think there's a certain on those back roads when you're driving along. There's the Spanish moss hanging from the trees. There's these rivers and irrigation channels and overflow that are filled with alligators or some other manner of snake or whatever. Um, I think a lot of that sort of lends itself to kind of the creative mind. Wouldn't you agree?
I think so. Yeah, and like you kind of touched on something there when you were mentioning food and
It
all,
was
but
the
you
food.
mentioned
It was the
it.
food.
And you mentioned people too. See, this is
Yeah.
another thing I've done. There's a lot of characters in my stories that I've essentially just based off of somebody I know or would see every day.
Mhm.
It's funny because you said something about becoming more Southern by the year. I didn't
Yeah.
realize how Southern I was until I left the South, and it's like you get around people because I've done a little traveling too, and you get outside the South, and everybody like immediately it's like, whew, like they just turn and look at you like, holy crap, where is this guy from? And it's like that doesn't happen here, and it's like all of a sudden it's like this fish out of water feeling like,
No.
oh my god, I'm kind of different up here. Uh, yeah, but the like driving down the dirt roads here and the way like the darkness and the shadow just hangs over the trees, like you said, there's
Mhm.
a lot of little swampy land, and it's just a perfect setting, for a spooky story to take place.
You said something though that really got my wheels turning. You'd mentioned like the Scottish Irish folklore aspect of things. You brought it in there a little bit at the beginning. Um, my mind instantly went to this. I don't know if you were big into if you've ever read the Sherlock Holmes stories at all.
No, I've watched a couple of like
The
the
Hound of the
the
Baskervilles.
Baskervilles.
He talks about the scene over the moor and how it's this kind of dark, it's shrouded in fog and in
Hmm.
mystery, and it looks very, very, very spooky. And I can think of a lot of these places I've been to down south where we've just been driving on back roads, doing whatever. Very similar in flavor to that kind of thing. Anyway, forgot where I was going with that,
Well,
but
you touched on
yeah.
something there again, like I do, which in the other side of the graveyard, I do dig into. I try to keep
dig.
a variety of
You
things
do
going.
dig into, haha, I see what you did there.
The grave, but I did use some Irish folklore in that book. But and also see, this is kind of an exclusive in my mind right now. I'm finishing up. I'm working on helping a guy write his biography. He's a social media influencer, so maybe in the next maybe this month we can finish that and have that rolling. But my next project, even though I told my brother I didn't really think I had the experience to do this, I'm writing a Scottish based story in the
Nice.
1930s. So I've been doing a
Okay.
lot of research. So naturally, when I was speaking to you during the introduction, Scotland, Ireland, that just came to the forefront of my mind
Yeah.
because I've been reading and studying all this stuff for this project. I hope I get to work on soon.
Yeah. There is so much. As a matter of fact, you may know of my of so Diego the podcaster who I've had on
Uh,
the show. You know Diego. One of our mutual friends, Brian Grover. Brian does a lot of traveling in Ireland and Scotland, and he knows quite a bit about the mythology of the Celtic tradition. So, if you have any questions, he's the good person to talk to.
Yeah, may have to. Yeah, Diego's a great guy, man.
Oh yeah.
Good friend of mine. Uh, I talk to him pretty regular, and I've listened to you and him on each other's shows
Mhm.
too, and enjoyed
Yeah.
both of those episodes.
It's so much fun.
Your
I
episode actually kind of inspired me. I was listening to it. I'm like, man, this guy makes me want to go work on something. So that's pretty
well,
cool.
that is really, I mean, that's the goal of all things writing is to get people writing, which actually leads me to a really good question. How did you get started writing?
Okay, I started writing at a young age. Just the quick version, like in elementary school and stuff, they make you write stories sometimes. Well, I always kind of enjoyed that part of school. And in the sixth grade, I had a teacher named Mrs. Jones, and part of our curriculum was we had to, I think it was on a record, like a vinyl. We listened to the Book of Three by Lloyd Alexander. I don't know if you've
Hmm.
heard of the Prydain series, but that was sixth grade reading at the time. So it's more of a Welsh mythology based story, Black Cauldron, all that.
Yeah.
So at the end of that, we got tasked with she gave us all these little paper masks and put us into groups, and we had to come up with a story and perform it in front of the class. While I wrote like this sword, sorcery, magical story similar to what we had heard, because I've always grown up uh, like in in the second grade. I found a King Arthur book. They had read
Hmm.
that. Grew up watching Highlander, Conan, stuff like that. So it's always in my mind. So naturally, I write this story about these magic masks and these warriors, and there's an evil dark lord, the usual tropes. And we performed that for the class. Well, everybody enjoyed it so much that I started writing sequels. They're like little scribble, pencil, elementary school stuff. But the teacher started letting me read the sequels after lunch to the class, and she started setting side time for me to sit on the class computer to start typing something,
Hmm.
and I never finished it. And then all through my teenage years, 20s or whatnot, I would pick at these projects. I'd start typing something. I never finished it. I couldn't finish anything. And just recently, over the last, what year are we on now? Almost 26. About 2022, 23, I started working on projects and completing them, and it's just been a cycle ever since. But it started at a young age and just took a long time to actually finish a project.
You mentioned not being able to finish. And I think that actually plagues a lot of people out there. People who they start working on a project and they get to a point and they save the file and they're like, I don't know where to go with this. What got you kind of over that hump to the point where you can finish a project, do you think?
It was kind of an accident. I did like a little mockumentary movie type thing with cell phone footage, and I had other people involved in that project voluntarily helping me. Well, I felt obligated to them at that point to complete that movie,
Hmm.
which is a whole different story, and that got completed. So, I'm moving on to the next thing. The movie thing wasn't, it was what it was. So I decided, because it got me on a few podcasts too, and I thought I kind of want to make a channel where I tell spooky short stories. Keep them
Yeah.
short, tell them. And then if I can get some momentum going, I want to start bringing other authors on with their works, and we'll talk about it. We'll let them read or I'll read their stories or whatever. When I actually sat down to do that, it was better on paper than in reality. I was trying to like just freestyle in the mic and tell a story. Couldn't do it. I started taking bullet point, just notes like to keep me on track. Not good enough. So I start actually writing paragraphs. It keeps progressing to the point I'm basically writing a short story. And I just
Yeah.
sat there and thought, my computer kind of sucks. It's a little outdated. I need some better technology. But what I have done here, I've already written 3 stories. Why don't I just take all these ideas on these notes that I have and just finish this out? Well, I did. I already had the stories in the notes, so all I had to do was type them. And I did it. Finished it. Pushed myself through. And then it's like once that happened the first time,
Hmm.
it became contagious. Like I can't. There's never like a moment now where I'm not thinking about ideas or stressing out myself because I'm not work. I'm sitting idle, and it's like I should be working. My first book, The Dirt Road Tells a Horror, I did get a little excited, I think, and kind of rushed through it. Now, when I look back at it, I cringe. Like it just hurts to see how poorly I think it was written. So I want to redo
Yeah.
that. And
So
it's just
our first, and I've said this to people on the podcast before, and listeners know I firmly believe this. Your first book, so my first novel, I don't even sell anymore. I believe in that storyline 1000%.
yes,
It was poorly executed
yes.
because I've learned so much since then. So I want to go back and resurrect it like you.
Which I will mention, these are all published through Zombie Media, and I've
Mm-hmm.
talked to Thomas Markham about that. I said if I wanted to go back in my file, because like you, 1000%, I love the stories I told.
Yeah.
I really enjoy that one had 19 short horror stories, and I really like every one of them. But I've asked him. I said if I wanted to go back and kind of touch up the grammatical errors, the poor use of phrases,
Yeah.
and straighten that up, could we do that? And he was like, it can be done. But
Yeah.
now I just keep pushing forward. Well, what's next? And I haven't gone back yet.
So I have on my computer on a piece of paper. I call it my word list. It's a bad words list to eliminate. So these are words that I go back through and I'm like, eliminate these words. Is, are, was, were, be, being, been.
Mm.
You get rid of all those words. Do not start sentences with then, with, when, as, and then the fanboys, which are for, and, nor, but, or, yet. So, and I keep that there as a reminder as I'm working to kind of go through and get rid of those. But those are little tips and tricks you learn as you go along. So, what tips and tricks have you learned that you've been able to incorporate as you have gotten to the point of writing now the other side of the graveyard?
Now, I know they're still riddled with mistakes and errors, but I
Yeah.
think what I've learned is, I mean, I'm far removed from high school and college at this point. So I basically having to relearn how to be grammatical, use the English, language into commas, which I knew commas, but just grammatical things. I think I've learned character development a little bit of pacing, slow down a little bit, don't push through the story so quick, let things breathe. Um, what else? Those are a couple of the things for sure that
Mm-hmm.
I feel like I've learned because, I would ask people who've read my works and be like, well, what did you think? And then I would be like, well, what did you like better? What did you not like as much? And I kind of, I don't let people like influence my creativity, but I take into
Yeah.
consideration constructive criticism. And I think those people's input have helped me a lot
Yeah.
because they're like, hey,
Honestly,
I'd like to see you, you know, I like to get to know my characters a little better. This story was 5 pages long and this guy's dead now. So it's like, kind of like to have gotten a little more attached to the character, that kind of thing.
well, in a short story, though, there's not much you can do. I just finished up a short story that I submitted, and I always struggle with the issue that in a short story, you basically have to start at almost the pinnacle of your tension. You cannot start at the bottom because you don't have that kind of room. But it's just a weird. Short stories are hard. Short story writing is hard. It just is.
I enjoy them because of my attention span. Because I'll when I'm working on stuff, I'll get a new idea and then I want to work on that. So it kind of allows me that freedom because it's like,
Yeah.
okay, if I can spend 20 to 40 pages on this story, I can move on to this next thing.
Yeah.
But
So,
go ahead.
oh, I was gonna say, so the structure. and Dirt Road Tales of Horror. Those are both anthologies as well, right?
No, the structure is actually more of a novella, a thriller. So
Okay.
it's a little smaller. It was intended to be a short story that was going to go into the other side of the graveyard, and it just to really tell that story, I couldn't have cut it off where it was at the point where I would have cut it off, and it would have just chopped it way too short. But it's about a guy who lives in Alabama, and he's very conspiracy minded. Doesn't
Okay.
trust the government, thinks everything they're up to something. So he's got a lot of baggage too, which you find
Okay.
out if you read the story. But he gets a drone and he takes it home just for his amusement. He starts flying it around. He lives in the middle of the woods, and then when he's got his drone in the air, he sees a building. And this guy's hunted these woods. He's lived here his entire life. Lives on his grandparents' old property. He would have known if something was there or not. And he sees this building, and it's like, oh crap, what is that? And the story kind of goes from there. So
You have me. You already have me. I love that idea. Absolutely love it.
it's based on some realities. I had a drone that I was using to make videos and stuff, and I thought, man, well, I fly over the woods around here where I live, and I was like, what if I was flying this thing and I just saw something there that like nobody knew was there?
Yeah.
And I based it off a little military experience with a building I saw one time that looked totally inactive, and I found out later it's fully operational on the inside, and just thought, man, put some of these elements together with a little bit of horror and
Yeah. Yeah, I understand. I wrote a book called Codename Formula 12, which is based on the interview of a Nazi zombie, or a
oh
guy who invents the Nazi zombie virus during World War II, and it's an interview with him in the United States after the events of World War II. But anyway, nobody wants to hear about my stuff.
well, I did.
Let's
I was like making a mental note, like look that up later.
so it's it's really funny when I do shows and I have my setup there. I when I talk about the Nazi zombie book, I don't say anything but Nazi zombies. That's my entire elevator pitch, because the Nazi zombie people, they like, take my money, please.
Mm-hmm.
Just take my money. Here it is. Yeah, and if they're not Nazi zombie people, they're just not going to be. It's a very niche thing. I know that. I wrote the book because it's a story I wanted to tell. But so all right. So you wrote the structure, then you wrote Dirt Road Tales of Horror.
Other
And
way around. I did Dirt
other way
Road
around.
first.
Other.
Yeah.
So what is it that prompted you to say, okay, now I need to write the other side of the graveyard? What was it that pushed you over kind of that hump?
The other side of the graveyard about ruined my life and just made me quit writing. But what got me
Oh
over the
no.
hump it was when I was doing Dirt Road. I keep notes in my phone. Like I could show
Yes.
you my notes page and I could flip forever and it never ends. Well,
Sure.
I've also got this blue notebook and I write. I just had so much material that I thought I've got enough here in the tank that I enjoyed this. This was so fun. Uh, this is one of the funnest things I've ever done in my whole life is write a book.
Yeah.
And if I want to keep doing this, I can because I've got all this material. So it was always there was to just keep going. And it still is. I've got, right now I'm trying to prioritize what I want to do this year, and find time, make myself do it. But what I say it almost ruined it was I put so much pressure on myself because I started working on it and I had a deadline. Like I wanted to try to be ready by the Halloween season of this year. And I wasn't really because I did the structure and that kind of broke off and took some time because structure was supposed to be part of that anthology. So then when the structure came out, I'm going, I'm promoting it. I'm really working it. So that's taken away from me writing the other side of the graveyard. So when I finally sat down late spring, early summer, really, I had some of them like halfway written, But when I went back and started finishing up, polishing things up, also these stories are longer. I was making
Hmm.
Dirt Road Tales of Horror. The stories are kind of short. This one, I'm they're still short stories, but I'm putting a little more into these. So I'm having to think more. I'm having to make sure the story makes sense. So it just was so much more work. Plus, I put a self-inflicted deadline on myself that
Yeah.
it really put the fire on me. And then I was just so exhausted, like, oh my gosh, man, I'll be so glad when this is over.
Yeah. That is the I think that's the bane of any author's existence, is not necessarily the deadlines that are put upon us. It's our own internal mental deadlines that
Yeah.
kind of kill us most of the time, right?
Yeah, there was absolutely no one telling me I had to have this done. And I just didn't want to wait till next year.
Yeah.
Because
That's
see,
fair.
like now I want to do a Gothic series for the winter. And
Hmm.
I've got 5 stories set aside up for that. Well, now I've got this other Scottish thing that I'm thinking of. I think I'm going to jump ahead of that one. And then another short story anthology. And I've got a full length mystery novel noted out. I want to get a few things done and get a little better before I try to tackle that.
Do you do you sit down and actually write the notes and the chapter ideas and that kind of thing down before you get started writing, or you just dive right in?
Yeah, it's a little bit of both because I think it was you that I heard talk about. Was it you or was it a different? That was talking about there's 2 types of writers. There's the guys that just turn on a computer and they just kind of gun deck right into everything. Then there's the well prepared notation. I'm a little bit of both. Sometimes, basically, the notes will be like maybe 2 sentences, maybe a short little description of what I was thinking that day. Because if I don't write it down, I'll completely forget it. And I surprise myself looking at my
Yeah.
notes. I'm like, man, who was I that day? That's a good note. I like that.
Wow.
But so I'll make like a little bit of a note so that mentally it will fire off and I'll remember what I was trying to do. And a lot of times when I start to sit down and write the actual story, it's almost like it comes, like it tells itself. Like, I don't know,
Yeah.
it's weird. It just starts to roll a little bit. And if it doesn't, I stop and I'll put it on the shelf and I'll walk around. I'll wait a few weeks and try to see if more details come up. And if it doesn't, I just kind of push it out and grab the next one that seems readily available.
It's really funny how often our characters get a vote in what ends up on the page. There's this, I think, misconception that we sit down and we think these things through, and to a certain extent, we kind of do. But as we start writing, our characters may decide not to go the direction we want them to.
Right.
When you were working on the other side of the graveyard, which is your most recent one, was there something that surprised you as you were putting that together?
Yeah, there was, let me look at the contents here. And there was one story in particular, it immediately came to my mind where the main character at first was male because it was based off of me going for a morning walk in like August or July or last year, and the humidity being so awful that you just feel like you can't breathe. And so I was, there's a lot more to the story, but that's where the basis came from. The more I kept thinking about things, the more I thought about where it was going to roll out. I decided to change it to a female character. Well, I put
Hmm.
her in Louisiana, and I'm like, well, why is she there? Why is she out jogging in the morning? So then
Yeah.
it's like her background comes in, who she works for, why she moved. She moved from the Midwest. Uh, there was some things that happened that weren't so favorable, with a relationship that ended, and these things just started coming out. And by the time I got done, I was like, man, I'm like really surprised where that came from. Like that turned into a lot more than where I set out. And then, there's one here about a mountain man. There's one about a serial killer. And those, I knew what the premise was going to be, but once I actually started, like the mountain man in particular, on his journey through this valley to get through the pass before the snow,
Hmm.
things just, it's like his journey told itself almost. till you get to the finale. And even at the finale, I changed what was going to happen. It went a completely different direction than where I had written in the notes to go.
I love the idea. There's almost an interesting story that we tell, not the people who don't write books, the readers, that we start with one idea in mind, and how often that storyline just sort of dictates a completely different avenue, completely different. You're going to go this way, whether you like it or not. You know. Um, so go ahead.
Oh, I was no spoilers really, but I've even thought about that story. Okay, so on the other side of the graveyard, what's going on is, like I did this with Dirt Road Tells a Horror. And Dirt Road Tells a Horror, it's a trucker that picks up a hitchhiker, and there's some unusual things about the hitchhiker. Well, the hitchhiker is he's got a guitar. He's kind of like a traveling balladeer guy. Well, he tells all of the stories in the book that you're reading. He's essentially telling these stories on this long drive from Florida to North Carolina. Well, then there's a conclusion at the end that ties it back together. Well, I did the same thing with the other side of the graveyard, except this time it's a Native American shop owner. He owns a bookstore, but he's had to basically sell trinkets, antique type stuff, because in the modern age, a standalone bookstore in small town Alabama is not going to pay the bills. And
Right.
they put a bypass by for people to go to the beach on vacation, so their little town doesn't get the present. So now he sells. Either way, anyway, so he stops by the cemetery, the graveyard on the way home, where there's this family of troublemaker boys that's watching, and they essentially hold him up as a hostage. Well, they leave the youngest cousin there with a shotgun, and the Native American guy's got this book. And he's like, hey, the kid's wearing a shirt that indicates, he's like, you might like horror. Let me read you these stories. So in this book, he's essentially a hostage telling this guy a story, awaiting the fate at the end of the book. So the story about the mountain man, I even thought about later. It kind of ends a little more upbeat in a way, but I thought, what if, like, really in a later volume or some other story later, I basically reveal that the Native American guy changes the end of that story to try to push this kid on a positive path because he's holding him as a hostage. And that's not even how the story ends in the book that he was reading, because the kid's nearly illiterate and would never know. And I was like, why didn't I think about that one before I published it?
I was thinking about, while you were relaying the story, almost a successive series of anthologies based on the idea of a trucker passenger,
Yeah.
a guy hitchhiking along the side of the road, but almost like a Tales from the Crypt meets Dark Road series. I don't know. It would be, that could be a lot of fun. But anyway,
Yeah, that's kind of what I've got. Two more anthologies planned, essentially the same way. There's a scenario with a narrator who's telling the story. I think the next one I may try to put in a submarine, but I've got to do submarine research and figure out how that works, and because if you're in a submarine, I knew some submariner guys. They have a lot of time, like they watch a lot of movies and stuff because they're underwater and there's not much to do. So I was like, what if
that's
the
true.
storyteller is anyway? But I like
Yeah.
doing that with my short story collections, having a prologue with a storyteller and a conclusion with a holy crap, I didn't know where this was going to go.
So why the title "The Other Side of the Graveyard"?
Okay, there is a reason for that. And it goes back to, okay, have you ever seen the movie Monster Squad?
Yes.
Where the kids, they have the club, the Monster Club. Well, when I was younger, we watched that movie at a friend's house, and we thought that was so cool. So we made our own little Monster Club, even though there was only three of us. And, this is back when everybody first started getting desktop computers and you could get on the internet. So on, and our internet was slow, but we'd go on like these search sites and find like vampire, Dracula, werewolf, and
Mhm.
we'd print it out. We had like a file, and so we had some other friends we dealt with like at church on Wednesday nights, and some of them wanted in the club. So we basically did like the kids in the movie and had like a written test. How do you kill a werewolf? How do you kill a vampire? But the final initiation to join our club was you had to walk across the church graveyard in the dark by yourself. And it's a long way. I mean, maybe 75 to 100 yards across. You have to touch the back fence and come all the way back, and you're in the club. So that's kind of where that title comes from. And Dirt Road was the same way. It was based off of me and my brother walking the dirt road as a kid, telling each other stories. I put little nuances of my life into some of these things.
I love the idea of the challenge to walk across the graveyard. I love graveyards, by the way.
I
It's
do
one of
too.
my, yeah, they're so cool. I have a book here that is funerary symbology. So it's all of the like the things that you see chiseled into headstones. Well, it actually explains it. It's
Hmm,
basically like a reference guide, and it's really a cool thing to have with you if you're walking through a graveyard and say, what does this represent? And you can flip through and, oh, this person was a seamstress. That's what the thing means on the headstone. But
that is really cool.
yeah, it's kind of a cool thing to just carry with me. Um, yeah, I absolutely. How many stories are in the other side of the graveyard?
Um, Counting the introduction is 12, and well, the prologue and epilogue makes. Is that right? Is it 13? Hold on. Two, three. Yeah, it's 13 total with the prologue and epilogue. So a little less than the first book, but they're longer stories.
Do you have a favorite? It's
Uh,
like asking you to pick your children. I'm aware of that, but
I do have a handful that I like a lot more. There was a couple I almost could have cut
mm-hmm.
and been okay with, but yeah, I definitely have one, two, three, four. Yeah, about half of them are my favorite, I guess, versus the other half.
By definition, your favorite means one, not
One,
six, but that's okay. I will let it go.
yeah, I mean, for
If there's one story in that, well, okay, let me put it this way. If there is one story in that collection that you would tell people they absolutely must read, what would it be?
hmm, I kind of put one for that example at the very beginning. I started with The Man on the Road because
Okay.
I liked what I ultimately did with that one. So it wasn't the first one I wrote, but I was like, I'm gonna make that number one in the book. And then I'm gonna set Happy Birthday Ben and Rustwire, which Rustwire is about a blues man
Mm.
at a family get together on a football Saturday night in the South. The LSU's about to play Alabama, and the guys are hanging out. They're playing dominoes. They've smoked some meats. The kids are out in the yard listening to the teenagers listening to music. The small boys are throwing a football, and they got this old blues man, and he ends up telling them a story that he reluctantly tells them a story. I really like that one, and I kind of keep some things. I would like to think maybe I'm more of a PG-13. I'm not like a
Yeah,
rated R, mature, X-rated writer. I like to tell stories more
mm,
than shock. I don't want to be. I'm not like a shock value gore
sure.
fiend or nothing like that. So I kind of break you into my style a little bit on the first ones. First, like 3 to 4, and then I kind of dice it up a little bit more in the center once if you were going to read it and you weren't familiar with my work, you gotta get a little taste before I get into. Hey, there's one part kind of in the story in the middle. There may be a little. If you didn't know me or know how I wrote, you may view one part like, I don't know about this guy, you know. So I kind of put it in the middle of the book.
I'm a fan of saying that if you are writing um, in in any style, all words matter, and it's important to remember that if you are swearing to swear, or you are adding something that is colorful or racy just because you can, doesn't mean you should.
Right.
If it's not moving the story along, then don't add it, because you're just doing yourself a disservice at that point. You're slowing the story down. Don't do that. So I am with you there as far as keeping it PG-13. I generally don't go too far over that bar. Sometimes I do, because when you have a monster that's killing someone,
Right.
they
Yeah.
are going to use colorful language. Just the way it
Right.
works.
Yeah, and I'm not gonna say like guts aren't pulled. It's horror, so yeah,
Yeah.
somebody's gonna get decapitated or have their head shot off or torn apart. You got that, but it's not like sadistic. Like some of these books, I think they just like to push things too far just to get attention. And I like settings. I like feeling. Uh, I like to relay like a setting, a scenario. That's the kind of writing I like to do. I want you to kind of feel like you're in if it's a nice spring day and you're walking past a cemetery after a rain, I'd like you to, be able to visualize that, and feel the day, smell the air, hear the birds. That's the kind of
Mhm.
stuff I like to focus on.
Yeah.
And,
No, I'm with you 100%.
and I'd like to not, if I can help it, I really try not to be too predictable where
Hmm.
somebody's like, oh, I kind of see where this is going. Some of them are, because some stories right off the jump, you got to know it's got to go in a certain direction, but you don't know what the outcome's going to be. So I try
Yeah.
to not repeat things too much if I can help it.
Yeah.
And that's going to be a challenge if I keep doing it. Like, my little bag of tricks is going to start to run out at some point.
You'd think that, but I've been writing for like 13 years now, and I don't, I seem to keep coming up with new things all the time. So, I think
Well, how did you get started? Like your very first book, like what prompted that? How did that go?
I was in a meeting at work. I hate to admit this, but I was in a meeting at work, and there was no reason for me to be there because I did not understand anything that they were talking about. So I flipped open the back of my notebook and I started writing a story. And like 3 days later, I had about 10 pages, and that became the book now known as No Name, which I don't even sell anymore. But it got me started.
And then once you got started, I guess did the next idea come, and did it catch like a fever, and you've just gone ever since?
Yep. Your exact, your explanation of how you got started, I think, is emblematic of all of us that are writers. You get the bug, you get bitten by it, and you just keep going.
Yeah,
And
I can't see how to stop now. It's like,
yeah,
well, where do you stop?
yeah, it's like, what are you doing Saturday mornings, or what are you doing, in the morning? I tend to write in the morning. It's when my brain seems to be functioning the best. Uh, I sit down and write for an hour. I actually have. I love showing this because it's literally an hourglass, and it will go for exactly 1 hour.
Mm-hmm.
And so when I sit down to write, I flip it over, and I don't stop writing until it runs out of sand.
Cool.
It's just the way I do it. Yeah. So, where can people find The Other Side of the Graveyard?
It's on Amazon, Amazon.com, under the other side of the graveyard. You can look up my name, Dustin Grammer, and it will bring up the other two books, so you could see Dirt Road Tells a Horror, The Structure, and The Other Side of the Graveyard. But I would, if I was gonna pick, I don't mind shooting myself in the foot here, and I've already said it. I would either pick The Structure or The Other Side of the Graveyard. Some people, I mean, people like Dirt Road Tells a Horror. I just can't stand the way I wrote it.
Yeah, but I mean, you're way too close to the subject matter, though.
Yeah,
You
but they're
know, you know the mechanics that internally in your brain do not work. I will tell you that my book, No Name, which I will tell you, which is it's a structural mess, people loved.
Yeah, it eats me up. I can't.
Yeah,
I gotta
yeah.
fix it.
I understand. I believe me, I understand
Yeah.
100%. I rewrote my second book, The Dramatic Dead, because there was a whole chapter in there I never really liked. And it was selling well before. It actually sells better now, after I redid all the covers. But it's kind of amazing. Kind of amazing.
So is it dramatic dead? Is it ghosts or zombies or is it just something else?
It's a mystery series
Okay.
of 3 books. It actually, one of the main investigators he's, as I like to tell people at the table, he's grumpy, he is cantankerous. He's like your great uncle in the corner at a family reunion who's slipping candy to all the kids. He's also been dead for 160 years, so he has that going for him.
Oh wow, yeah, that sounds good.
He's he's a Confederate officer who during the battle that he so the story behind it is he was he basically, this is towards the end of the war. He had basically a bunch of kids running around with muskets, and only like a certain number of them even had anything to fire with. And he was looking down the hill at the Union forces, and he's like, "We're this is going to be a slaughter. I can't do this." So he went to accept the articles of surrender, and he set his musket up against a tree. And as he's going to meet the person carrying the articles of surrender, the musket falls over and goes off and
Mm,
kills him. His second in command takes that as God saying to him, "You guys are done," and he accepts the articles of surrender in his place. But that is how how the whole thing sort of takes place. But why I mention that is because it's kind of a fun. There's a bit of an argument that goes on between one of the living characters and the ghost, and one of the other characters remarks that it'll probably go on well into the afterlife because they love nothing more than to needle each other constantly. But it's fun, you know.
yeah, yeah, that
Writing
sounds
is
good.
playing around with our imaginary characters is fun.
Mm-hmm.
It's what we like doing. It's what makes us writers. Yeah, yeah. So what's next on you? What's next on your horizon?
Like I said, I'm trying to work on this. I gotta get this biography over. We're close. That's fun. That was unique, and I know
Hmm?
the guy. We've been friends forever, so it's easy to write his story because I was there for a lot of it.
Yeah,
And that's unique. I've never written anything nonfiction before, so that's fun. We're gonna have that done hopefully, and then I want to move on to this Scottish supernatural thing I'm working on. And then I want to tell. I've got those 5 Gothic stories I want to tell. That are more in the vein of like a Victorian era. Like I've got a haunted house one in there. I just want to write a good haunted house story, or I've got that idea laid out. And there's one about these guys in Bavaria and one about what else have I got? A house like a aristocratic family, and they're throwing a party, and there's some other things going on there. So that's going to be different for me because they're not Southern tales, but
yeah,
it's like the kind of stuff I like to read or listen to. So
yeah.
I want to do my own version of that, and then I've got notes to do something like Dirt Road Tales of Horror and The Other Side of the Graveyard. It's going to be another short story collection that I want to get to, and then I've got. Uh, in Dirt Road Tales of Horror, the second story is called The Necromancer. And I have a follow up to that that would be like novella length. It was going to be another short story in another collection, but I think I want it to be novella material, standalone 100 pages or
Uh,
so.
I'll tell you what. My number one sellers for probably the last year has been my novellas.
Hmm.
Yeah, people love them. They're
Yeah,
not
they're
a they're
fun.
yeah, they're fun. They don't take that long to read, and
And they
I
don't cost
people
people as much.
No, and you know, it's a reasonable price. It's just a good time. Yeah,
Right. Yeah, and
yeah,
they're fun. I really had a lot of fun writing the structure
yeah,
and keeping the same story going for more than just a short story amount of pages.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Well, and I'm excited. I'm excited to read the other side of the graveyard. It sounds like a ton of fun. It's going to be added to my to be read pile very very soon.
Oh,
Um,
thank you.
and I'm going to make sure and I will always leave reviews, ladies and gentlemen. You reader, leave reviews. Reviews are a big thing. Gotta have them. Um, but yeah, so I am not going to be in Alabama anytime soon. But I will, oddly enough, be in Savannah, Georgia, in 2 weeks.
That
Two
oh, I
weeks.
love going there.
Yeah, yeah. I
I've
love
been.
Savannah's a fun place. It's just a
It is.
fun city. It's got an energy all its own.
The second story in the other side of the graveyard is in Savannah.
Yeah,
It's about a
yeah,
guy named Ben, and actually, I did some research, and I put Ben in Savannah on a day after it snowed, which sounds very unusual because it's hot. It doesn't get.
yeah.
I mean, it gets cold there because me and my wife have gone there in December 3 times, I think. But I
Mhm.
did look up in 1996 in February, they did have snow one time. And
It
that's where I
does
based the
snow.
story.
Yeah,
A light
it's
snow,
it,
but they had a snow.
it's rare, but it does snow in Savannah. It's like you know, you would think Godzilla has come up out of the ocean at that point because you know there's all panic. It's amazing fun. Well, everybody, listen. From all things writing, I can tell you go to the other go to. I'm going to post a link at the end of this video. Use your phone, get the QR code, go on out, take a look, order any one of these books, ladies and gentlemen. I know the author said the Dirt Road Tales of Horror and the Other Side of the Graveyard, but you know, order any of them, order all of them, order all of them. That's what you ought to do. Dustin, it has been my greatest honor to have you on. I appreciate you taking the time.
Oh, thank you for giving me the time. This has been fun.
Oh,
It's
I
nice to talk to another author and kind of
yeah.
see what your path was and what your mindset is.
Well, and that is literally the point of all things writing is it's not it started out as the idea that we really should be able to share our different journeys and talk about them because if we don't you know other people who are just starting out won't have that same thing to refer back to and I think that's important. I think it's very important.
And also, don't compare yourself to anyone. Just
No,
do you, basically, I guess. Just don't let the external things get in because that's discouraging if you do that the wrong way and start thinking, well, this guy has done this much, or wow, look at them doing this. I'm not there. I wish I could do that. It's like, no, just focus and work on your project, finish it, get it done. That's how I'm coaching myself. It's like, just keep moving, keep your head down, do the work, tell your story. Nobody's heard your story yet, or your version of, even if it's, sometimes I think I've come up with something that hasn't maybe quite been done that way, and then I'll somehow stumble over a reel on TikTok of, holy crap, I thought of this. Somebody's already done it. And I'm like, I'm doing it anyway. Mine's going to be different. Because you don't want people to think you stole an idea, but it's like,
right.
anyway.
You know, truer words have never been spoken. I don't think there's the way you said it is beautiful, perfectly wise. It's the beard. The beard always makes us wiser. You know, it's one of those things. You just you write your story your way every
Yeah.
time.
Yeah. You can't let, I've told other people this because I know a couple people that haven't finished their projects yet, and they make the excuse they're comparing, they're using comparisons like, don't just work, just finish it, put it out there, and then like, whatever happens with this one, learn from it, or what you don't like, you can fix it next time. Just work,
Yeah,
just finish it, go.
I've gotten the statement, "Oh, you want to be the next Stephen King?" No,
Yeah.
I want to be the first Brian Nowak. That's
Yeah.
it. That's all I want to be.
Yeah, it's like, I want to write
I
and tell
want to
these
be.
stories because if I don't get them out of my head, I'm going to end up in the hospital probably because
Yeah,
they're going to bother me. Because once I get them out, it's kind of like I move on. Like, okay,
yeah,
that one's gone now. I can
uh,
go to the next thing. But if I don't, it's going to be like, hey, man, when are you going to hurry up and do this?
yeah. Well, my friend, I really appreciate the conversation. To all of the listeners of All Things Writing, I appreciate you hanging out with us today. On behalf of myself and Dustin, I want to thank you for hanging out with us. You've been amazing. And stay tuned. We'll have more author interviews coming up soon. On behalf of myself and Dustin, this is All Things Writing signing off. This has been another amazing episode of All Things Writing. If you heard something that got your wheels spinning, check out the links in the show notes. Also, please follow the show and remember to leave those reviews. Those simple acts of kindness mean the world to us. Hop on over to briannowak.com, and that is Brian with a Y, and check out my latest novels. I'm on Amazon or wherever you buy your ebooks. And as a reminder, the music you heard on the show today was used under license from the artist Ryan Ancona. Thanks for listening to the show and have a blessed day.